Welcome back to the Emily Show. And this week, we need to talk more about Diddy. But don't worry, we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of the Diddy. We're going to do an overview of everything that's going on. New press conferences, hundreds potentially of new victims, lots of new allegations, new civil suits, new lawyers. And we're going to talk a bit more about Tupac. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Emily Show. I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst and big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years. I'm a former prosecutor, and I break down the legal side of pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. We should just get into it. Let's go. Thank you to today's sponsor, Factor. You know, it's beginning to feel a lot like fall where I live, and I hope it is for you too. And it's time to embrace those warm and savory fall flavors. And with Factor, you can let their chefs do the cooking and deliver never frozen, fully cooked meals right to your door. All you have to do is heat and eat. And sometimes that's all I have time to do. And Factor keeps me eating balanced meals that I feel good about, because I don't have to do anything but heat it up. Plus, when you go to order Factor, you can order from over 35 different meals a week, and you can pick what kind of eating style works for you: vegan or vegetarian, keto, or just looking for a balanced meal. The choice is yours. And if you know it's going to be a busy week, Factor can deliver far more than meals. From easy grab-and-go breakfast items to smoothies, Factor has you covered with more than 60 add-ons to keep you fueled 24/7. Why not just get it all delivered to your door? And with our discount, we've got a great deal for you. Head to factormeals.com/EDB50 and use code EDB50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code EDB50 at factormeals.com/EDB50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. Now, let's get back to today's show. So today we've got a ton of updates to talk about with Diddy. There are new lawyers. There is a new judge. The new lawyers are interesting in and of themselves. A new judge is interesting. Then we have an appeal regarding the detention, but also with a new judge, there's the ability to make the motion again in front of the new judge. So we've got two potentially more bites at the apple with regard to detention. We have this huge new press conference we need to talk about with Texas lawyer Busby talking about the thousands of phone calls their office received and how that may or may not impact the criminal case. Plus, as I was sitting down to record, news started breaking that Tupac's family has hired a lawyer whose name's going to be familiar to you to start investigating the connection between Diddy and the death of Tupac, which is very interesting, coming so close in time to the pending trial of Kefee D. If you did not listen to the episode where I broke down Kefee D's discussion of the murders of Biggie and Tupac from mostly his book, Compton Street Legend, go back. That episode's fantastic. I'll link it. But also, I will talk a little bit about that now, because Kefee D absolutely points the finger at Diddy hiring out the hit on Tupac and says it in no uncertain terms. So, breaking news as I'm recording on Friday, October 4th, we are going to talk about the Diddy Tupac connection of it all. This is coming to us from Court TV and literally every other outlet that covers anything law, pop culture, or everything else. Coming to us from Court TV, Tupac's family hires investigators to find link to Sean Diddy Combs. Well, it's not just investigators. They also hired lawyers. A high-profile New York attorney has been confirmed to Court TV that he has been hired by the family of rapper Tupac Shakur to investigate a possible link between his murder and Sean Diddy Combs. Guess who that lawyer is? That lawyer is none other than Alex Spiro, who you may recognize from all of his fiery motions in the Alec Baldwin Rust case, because that is Baldwin's lawyers. Now, we had heard that Spiro might be hired by Diddy, but if Spiro's taking this case, Spiro was not hired by Diddy. and wouldn't really have had talks with Diddy because that would have been a conflict. So the fact that Alex Spiro has been hired by Tupac's family to look into a connection to Diddy means that he did not have those conversations. And I'm not surprised that after the massive win Spiro's team had in the Baldwin case, that if you are looking for a lawyer in New York, that his name and his firm is going to rise to the top of that list. Court TV goes on to say New York-based attorney Alex Spiro, who recently represented Alec Baldwin, tells Court TV that he has been hired to investigate the music mogul and his potential connections to one of Las Vegas's most notorious murders. Shakur was gunned down in 1996 while driving in Sin City, and his homicide remained unsolved until Dwayne Kefee D. Davis was arrested and charged with his murder in 2023. While Davis has been the only person charged with the murder, he previously accused Combs of being involved in the planning. A detective who testified before the grand jury that indicted Davis said that Suge Knight, who was also injured in the shooting that killed Tupac, allegedly told people that Combs was responsible, if not directly, indirectly, for the murder of his good friends. Kefee D said in no uncertain terms in his book, Compton Street Legend, that Diddy offered upwards of $1 million for the murder of Tupac because Tupac was rising up the hip hop charts and Tupac was under their rival label. Again, like we are seeing in the YSL case, where the label and the groups are being accused of running as criminal organizations, there were accusations of that and evidence of that in the 90s when we're looking at the difference between Death Row and Bad Boy Records, but that is probably multiple multi-part docuseries, movies, and all of the rest of it. They go on to say that with Combs behind bars, other rappers have joined in the chorus to accuse him of being involved in not only Shakur's murder, but by extension, the killing of Notorious B.I.G. This is not a secret. This has never been a secret. It's just been, will anyone prosecute somebody for it? This has never been a secret. The connections of who's connected to who in power have just waned. This was not a surprise to anyone. They go on to say Marshall Mathers, better known as Eminem. Why are we even defining Eminem, Court TV? Okay. Eminem raps in his new song Fuel, Notorious B.I.G.'s death was the domino effects of Tupac's murder. Again, we know that. Like facial tissue, whose clock should I clean next? Puffs? Tilly's in police handcuffs, guilty, will he step up? Yes, Eminem, we know. Eminem previously accused Combs of being involved in Shakur's murder in 2018's Kill Shot, where he said, the day you put out a hit's the day Diddy admits that he put the hit out that got Pac killed. Again, Eminem's not the only one that's been talking about this. Kefee D put it in a whole damn book. I will say, in the prophetic words of Kefee D, though, as I listened to this book on audiobook and didn't realize that he had put bullet holes in the art of the pages of this book, which is a really interesting choice. In the very first chapter of this book, Kefee D says, quote, I'm one of the only living witnesses to Tupac's killing, who also knows the much larger story around the reasons why both Tupac and Biggie were killed. I was considered a prime suspect in both the Biggie and Tupac killings for years. I know the real fucking story. Period. Well, sir, this was written well before he was indicted in Las Vegas. He talks about the fact that he had had a deal with the feds. Well, the state and the feds can prosecute you. So unfortunately for Kefee D, I think he perhaps thought that his deal with the feds would carry over to the state. I imagine Alex Spiro is going to want to have a conversation with both Kefee D and Suge Knight. Suge Knight also has a podcast. I don't know if he said anything about this yet, but when I covered this originally, when Kefee D was indicted for the murder of Tupac, I did talk about Suge Knight talking about Diddy and talking about the fact that Diddy should not be using the name Love when he goes to prison. This was shortly after the raids on Diddy's homes. Suge knew how that was going to go down. It was just a matter of time. I want to know what else Suge knows. And will he talk? I think of the two, Kefee D is probably more likely to talk, seeing that he did put it in a whole ass book. For those that have been waiting for the Diddy connections to other crimes to start coming forward, we might start to see that now that not only is Tupac's families involved, but you have lawyers coming out of the woodwork bringing forward those who did not want to come forward before. And I understand why. But now that Diddy is behind bars, exactly what the US attorney in New York hoped would happen and said in his press conference, now that he is in jail, we hope others will come forward. It seems that the floodgates are opened. And with that, we need to talk about this press conference. I will link the entire press conference to this episode if you want to go watch it for yourself. I am going to summarize. I'm not going to get into all the details of that press conference, but the main point for me is how does this impact the criminal investigation and how does this impact others coming forward? And we have seen this time and time again when something comes forward and there is response to it, like in this case, Cassie's lawsuit that started bringing other lawsuits forward, and then the federal indictments. Now others are coming forward to say this also happened to me, or this is what I saw. And I imagine those that were involved and or complicit are also coming forward to try to save their own ass, because the feds will flip you like a pancake as fast as they can if you give them the opportunity. The feds, when they are trying to get up the chain to find who did what, will talk to those who were involved, but not the tip top of culpability, and go from there. So in the press conference, Houston attorney Tony Busby said that they have received over 3,000 calls from individuals across the United States talking about their experiences with Diddy, and that they are vetting those to bring individual civil lawsuits, not a class action, individual civil lawsuits similar to the allegations made in Cassie's lawsuit and in the federal indictment. What Busby said is that so far they have been able to vet over 120 individuals who will be bringing individual lawsuits. So there are going to be a lot more civil suits to come. None of those have been filed yet. This was just a press conference. But I have no reason to believe that these won't be forthcoming. The timing of the press conference is interesting to me, and I wonder if it's because they are also working, or some of them are also working with the federal government, because I think we will probably see a superseding indictment. In the press conference, Busby indicated that a number of individuals who came forward had interactions, we're going to go with interactions, with Diddy as recently as this year. So we might see in that Ricco allegation, they can go back as far as they want if there is a pattern of activity, but bringing things that were happening in 2024, including things that might have happened after January, when we know from filing from the US attorneys that Diddy was aware that he was a target of an investigation. So from then, what did he keep doing? That's going to be argued in bail. That's going to be argued at sentencing if he is convicted, and that's going to be argued to bring things together and to span those potential crimes and predicate acts all the way back in that Ricco case. Because if you can show a chain or a pattern, you can go back decades. And I think that's what the feds are going to want to do here, is go back decades. I think there is a reason they charged the indictment as narrowly as they did, and it allows them to build their case under that Ricco case and then bring in additional victims if they choose to as they build their indictment. But it allows them to put Diddy in custody and hold him in custody on that trafficking charge that has a presumptive no bail, though his attorneys are fighting it. And we'll talk about his new team of attorneys in just a minute. Busby said that of the 120 individuals that they have accepted as clients, 62% identify as African American, 30% white. 25 clients told the attorney that they were underaged when they were victims, including as young as 9 years old. That brings an entirely different set of potential charges to any superseding indictment if there is one. Right now, everything that's been charged is for those over the age of 18. There are different charges when we are talking about minors. And based on what Busby has said, is that there are minors who were as young as 9 when they were victimized. That is going to change the nature of this indictment if the feds bring a superseding indictment. He also indicated that they have received quite a lot of corroboration in the form of pictures, videos, and texts, that some of his clients have already spoken to the FBI and others might move forward doing so. Again, the fact that there are so many speaking up can helpfully bring a little bit of that. It's hard to say safety, because I am sure that everyone considering speaking up against Diddy is afraid, but at least there is some awareness that you're not alone. And it, for me, gives a different spin on how aggressively Diddy's lawyers have been going after Cassie Ventura in the press. I believe I said in one of the podcasts that I hope that that doesn't have a silencing or chilling effect. And I hope that Busby putting out there that there are going to be a substantial amount more civil lawsuits helps those that might feel terrified to come forward, that they know they're not alone, and that they know that their stories are not just them, and they know there are others also speaking forward and speaking up, and that if the attorney is going to try to do this to Cassie, it's going to get ridiculous if the attorney tries to make the same arguments towards 5 people, 10 people, 120 people. At some point, it just becomes ridiculous. So I hope that the Busby press conference somewhat combats the very aggressive way we've seen Diddy's lawyers go after the one victim in the case who was not named by the feds, but because Cassie brought a lawsuit and because the video of Diddy assaulting Cassie in the hotel came so prevalently forward in this case, it is easy to know that that's exactly who victim 1 is in this case. We also heard in the press conference that the events occurred at parties, which is exactly what the feds have said, and what we know the feds have video of: New Year's Eve parties, 4th of July parties, white parties. We also heard Busby say that drugs, they believe, played a role in about 90% of the assaults. This is something that we saw in all of the civil lawsuits that have been filed so far, is that people had a drink, those drinks were laced, and they were passed out. That is a very common reoccurrence. And we have seen that in every civil suit we've covered about which bottles of alcohol did he laced, which ones were not laced, and that was a frequent fixture of the Diddy parties, that there would be separate bottles of alcohol, some laced, some not. He also said in the press conference that the names of the individuals who engaged in conduct, witnessed it, did nothing to stop it, facilitate it, and helped cover it up will shock you. And they said that they will be naming names other than Sean Combs, and that it is a, quote, long list already. So though in other high-profile trafficking cases, we have not seen people named, it seems that the civil attorneys are like, yeah, bet. We'll name them all. We will name them all. Name them. And I imagine that that will also prompt some to perhaps go to the feds and say, hey, I would like to not go to prison. I'll tell you what I know. So it will be interesting to see how much these looming civil lawsuits potentially impact the criminal case. But of course, Combs's lawyer also gave a statement regarding this, saying, quote, as Mr. Combs's legal team has emphasized, he cannot address every meritless allegation in what has become a reckless media circus. Sure, Jan. That said, that was not part of her quote. That was commentary of me on Erica Wolf's statement. That said, Mr. Combs emphatically and categorically denies as false and defamatory any claim that he sexually abused anyone, including minors. He looks forward to proving his innocence and vindicating himself in court, where the truth will be established based on evidence, not speculation. Interestingly enough, Attorney Busby said that they had corroborating videos, text messages, photos, and all of it corroborates the civil lawsuits. And we have seen the same allegations again and again and again. So we know the feds have all the video from the houses, and I don't know how they are going to combat all of that. So, though he is innocent until proven guilty in the eyes of court, I think the eyes of public opinion are side-eyeing the vehement denials at this point. Let me know what you think. Interestingly enough, I also think amongst the vehement denials by Diddy's legal team, he's also keeping an eye on what happens when he is convicted, and has added some interesting new attorneys to the team with that in mind. There has been a plethora of filings in federal court with regard to Diddy. First of all, the case got reassigned to a new judge. There's going to be a hearing this week when this goes live. I will keep you updated in the Law Nerd app, as I will be gallivanting college campuses with my kiddos. But I am keeping a weathered eye. I imagine Diddy's lawyers are going to say, please let him out of custody. And the judge is going to say, yeah, no. But Diddy's lawyers also filed an appeal with regard to the previous denial of bail. And in that appeal, there are notice of new attorneys, including Anthony Ricco and Alexandra Shapiro. While we have not talked about Alexandra Shapiro on this channel much, Alexandra Shapiro is a very interesting add to the Diddy legal team. Why? Well, she recently filed a 120 plus page motion for new trial for her client, Sam Bankman Fried, who was convicted in the FTX white collar crime scandal. And Bankman Fried is Diddy's bunkmate in custody. So it's very interesting that the recommendation for a lawyer who focuses on appeals is also the lawyer representing another high-profile individual that Diddy is bunking with. However, Alexandra Shapiro has a very interesting professional background. She was a clerk for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She is focused on high-profile and white-collar and complex crimes. Look, white-collar crime lends itself to RICO allegations. The RICO statute and the white-collar crime and conspiracy statutes operate in a lot of similar ways. So to see somebody who has immense experience in the sphere of fraud, conspiracy, and white-collar crimes is actually incredibly smart on Diddy's end. She has successfully argued 2 Supreme Court victories that narrowed the scope of the federal fraud statutes. She, again, was a clerk for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which is impressive as fuck. Look, clerking for the Supreme Court is no joke, but also that is incredibly I am impressed. I don't know about you. I am impressed, as you can tell. She also wrote a novel about a white-collar crime prosecution called Presumed Guilty, giving some novelized commentary on what the law looks like in the world of a wrongful white-collar crime prosecution. But her notable experience is with the Court of Appeals. So when you're looking at building out a legal team, having someone whose eye is constantly on preserving issues for appeal is an incredible privilege, because trial attorneys are often focused on trial, focused on the story of trial, focused on the witnesses they're bringing, and are not always as focused on preserving issues for appeal. Yes, they are always trying to do that, but it is not their sole focus. An appellate attorney at the trial stage can say, we also need to argue this. We also need to argue that. We also need to bring this motion. So they are starting with the end in mind, the end being, if he is convicted, what is the best chance on appeal? And looking at that from the earliest point in a case and bringing on a powerhouse attorney at the beginning, looking towards appeal and appealing the bail hearing is something that truly only the rich have the ability to do. But also, if you are Sean Combs and have the money, then yeah, building out your legal team with an appellate attorney, as well as trial attorneys, as well as attorneys who are cognizant and well-versed in social media and in the play between social media and PR is a very smart play. We will see how it plays out in court. I don't think it's going to get him out on bail, but it is absolutely something that we will see play out going forward. And because the law is going to law, we have a few new filings that we need to take a look at before we wrap this episode. Will new things happen between the time I record this and the time it goes live? Probably, but that's why you're in the Law Nerd app, so I can just keep you up to date all the time. A huge thank you to today's sponsor, Shopify. Not only has Shopify been an incredible sponsor, but they're also the platform I chose to use to build the Law Nerd Shop long before they ever sponsored the show. I chose to build the Law Nerd Shop on Shopify because it was easy to set up and it would grow with me, from selling my first couple of shirts to bringing you mugs and tumblers and everything in between, with a new merch launch coming very soon, and I can't wait. Shopify has supported my growth from selling in the US, selling internationally, selling one thing, selling many things, and when we get together in person, they also support selling IRL. And with the best converting checkout on the internet, it's no wonder that so many of the brands you love, from your favorite nail polish to the bed linens that you enjoy, use Shopify. And Shopify is easy to integrate with shopping on YouTube, Instagram, and other platforms, so you don't have to worry about building multiple shops. And if you ever get stuck, their award-winning customer service is there to help you along the way. So if you're ready to upgrade your business and get the same amazing checkout that I use, sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/lawnerd. Remember, that's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/lawnerd to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/lawnerd, and you'll start hearing this sound soon. Let's get back to today's show. The first new filing we're taking a look at is from October 4th. It is a scheduling order from the new judge. The new judge is Arun. I think the proper pronunciation of the last name is Subramanian, so we're going to go with that. The judge said this case has been reassigned to me. All counsel must familiarize themselves with the court's individualized practices in criminal cases. God, I love federal judges. They're like, get on my level. These are the rules. It is hereby ordered that the status conference scheduled for Wednesday, October 9th will now be held Thursday, October 10th at 2 p.m. I wonder if the judge is like, we don't do scheduling conferences on Wednesdays, Thursdays. On Wednesdays, we wear pink, and on Thursdays, we do scheduling conferences. And there are a lot of judges that will stack their days of the week by the type of case they are hearing. It is a smart play for calendar management. So the next hearing in the Diddy case will be Thursday, October 10th. And happy birthday to my brother, who is a 10/10 birthday. The next filing from the court is a very simple scheduling order telling the parties when they need to line out any issues they want to address to the court. The parties must submit a joint letter indicating the issues the parties believe should be addressed at the hearing by October 9th at noon. So the attorneys have to meet and confer and decide, hey, at the scheduling conference, we want to talk about discovery, detention, etc., trial dates. And so that all needs to be submitted to the court by Wednesday at noon. And the final thing that was submitted to the court was a joint protective order for the documents that the government will be turning over to the defense attorney. So discovery is already underway, but the government wants to make sure that information that is submitted or given to the defense attorney is treated in a particular way. So the protective order is not something that's unusual in cases, and it goes through what information is going to be disclosed, what's going to be sealed, what's going to be attorney possession only material, meaning that it's not going to be in custody with Sean Combs. It is going to be for the attorneys, stuff that is attorneys' eyes only to make sure that they reduce the risk to any victims or witnesses, things that will be labeled attorney eyes only and how they will be labeled that way. And so all of those agreements are lined out in a 10-page, fairly extensive protective order signed by all parties. Again, that is not unusual in cases, but we always don't follow as closely with cases till they go to trial. So it might be something new, but it is something new on the docket. So with that, we have 3 documents that dropped while recording: the protective order, the scheduling orders, and we will see a new Diddy hearing on October 10th. Next week, I will be off and away. I will keep you in the loop in the Law Nerd app. And the following week, we will be going gavel to gavel, catching up if the Sarah Boone case goes forward on time. I talked a bit about whether or not that will be happening and what my thoughts are in Quick Bits this week. So if you're not caught up with the Quick Bits, now is the time. And with that, Law Nerd, thank you for being here. Raise a glass and say it with me. May your Wi-Fi be strong. May your toilet paper be plentiful, your bidet be warm. May your family be well. May the odds be ever in your favor. I will see you in the next one. Bye. You can stay up to date with everything I'm covering on our free iOS and Android app at lawnerdapp.com, or search your app store for Law Nerd. And you can also follow me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. Remember, I stream on YouTube on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I recap all of that for you in Quick Bits on Monday. And of course, The Emily Show drops on Wednesdays. Thanks for being a Law Nerd.